It's a close-knit bunch of folks up there on the Rules Committee, Madam Speaker. If you've not been by recently, you ought to come by. It's only 13 of us there. It's easy to remember everybody's name, but you don't go to the Rules Committee when you have important bipartisan legislation to bring to the House floor. You go to the suspension calendar for that. You go to the Rules Committee when you have contentious pieces of legislation to bring to the floor. And I regret that we are here today on things that are absolutely contentious, that could have been absolutely partnership bills. I want to reference first H.R. 1500. That's the bill my friend from Colorado spoke about as it relates to the Consumer Financial Protection Board. He's absolutely right. The way this Congress set up the Consumer Financial Protection Board when Democrats were running this institution and President Obama was in the White House was to make it a completely administration-driven agency with no accountability to Congress whatsoever. That was a mistake. But the folks who set it up liked the team that was running it at the time, and so our efforts in the minority to stop that from happening were rebuffed. Now we're here today, Madam Speaker. You might think that we have a list of legislative fixes to the Consumer Financial Protection Board. Not so. I encourage you to pick up a copy of H.R. 1500 just to see what those fixes might be. It's a 40-page bill. You'll have to get to page 21 before the accusations and assertions against former Director Mick Mulvaney end. And the important work, like changing the way we reference the agency by name, begins. I don't have any language today. No amendments were offered in the Rules Committee last night, Madam Speaker, to talk about all the things that former Director Cordray did while he was there. The list of things that he did that I don't like are long. The list of things that he did that I thought violated the actual text of the law, pretty long. But he's gone. And we have the ability to fix anything we want to fix that he did. So no amendments were offered to impugn the integrity of the former director. Well, not the former director, Mr. Cordray, but the former director, Mick Mulvaney, yes, acting director. 21 pages of a 40-page bill dedicated to personal attacks on the former director. Madam Speaker, if we wanted to do something about the Consumer Financial Protection Board that brought its authority out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, right back here to where it belongs in Article 1, we would make this agency subject to congressional appropriations. This is a bipartisan issue. You want to find something that we agree on as an institution, let's talk about making Article 1 the lawmaker in this country rather than Article 2. Let's talk about taking it out of the White House's hands and putting it back into the people's hands on Capitol Hill. You will not find that idea in these pages. It's a disappointment because we could be doing something in partnership. Standing for consumers is a shared value, not a divisive one. Go now to the bill coming out of the Ways and Means Committee, H.R. 1994. Madam Speaker, as my friend from Colorado referenced, this bill passed unanimously out of the Ways and Means Committee. Unanimously. Take a look at the men and women on the Ways and Means Committee. I think there are 42 of them. These are not shrinking violets on the Ways and Means Committee. I see a couple of them out here. I won't call anybody out by name, Mr. Panetta, but there are not shrinking violets on this committee. These are serious public policy advocates who represent very diverse parts of the country and who fight hard for the values that their constituents represent. Unanimously, they came together as a committee, Madam Speaker, to change the rules for retirement, to make it easier for families to save, to change the rules around college savings plans so that families who ran into challenges in secondary years, families whose kids develop special needs might not be going on to college but who have very real needs today, to allow those dollars to be tapped by those families to serve the educational needs of their children. Unanimously, it passed the committee. In fact, I'll read from the committee report. This is not something that was done lightly in committee, Madam Speaker. We're talking about hundreds of pages of legislation, hundreds of pages of committee report. This was a thoughtfully designed and crafted piece of legislation. The committee said this: The committee believes that expanding 529 plans will help families save for education expenses that meet each family's unique needs. We run into that problem often, Madam Speaker. We try to do something that's good for America. Turns out 330 million Americans have different needs and priorities. So the Ways and Means Committee avoided a one-size-fits-all solution, recognized the unique needs. I'll read on. The committee says, by allowing tax-free distributions for apprenticeship expenses, homeschooling expenses, student loan repayments, elementary and secondary expenses, in addition to tuition, families can customize the use of their education savings to make education more affordable. We didn't read that on the headline of any major newspaper when the Ways and Means passed that unanimously. I'm sure there was something on the headlines of that major newspaper about wars in foreign lands. I'm sure there was something in the newspaper that day about partisan politics and how folks were poking each other with sharp rhetorical sticks. Not a word about how the men and women of the People's House on the Ways and Means Committee came together unanimously, not because it wasn't hard to craft solutions, it is hard to craft solutions, but came together unanimously on consensus language to move out of committee. Sounds like I'm going to tell a story with a happy ending, Madam Speaker, and I should be. I should be. This should be a story about how we get things done, but what happened last night that you also won't see on the front page of the paper is we took this consensus product that was passed unanimously by Republicans and Democrats, we took it up there to the Rules Committee, and on a straight party line vote, we ripped out all of the language protecting families who are trying to help their children at home. Children who may not be getting everything they need through the public schools, and so they get additional education at home. Families that may have opted out of the public school system because they couldn't get what their children need, and they're homeschooling their children. This language that was agreed upon unanimously in a bipartisan way, ripped out in a party line vote in the Rules Committee last night, we'll never vote on it in this chamber, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee, long committee report, long committee language, they deliberated over this language, concluded that the right thing to do was to help all American families. But somewhere between that unanimous vote in committee and late last night in the Rules Committee, the decision came down from on high, and by on high I do mean your side of the aisle, Madam Speaker, because when you sit in the Speaker's chair you have that kind of authority. The Rules Committee is in fact the Speaker's committee, that said we're going to rip this language out. We offered an amendment last night, and I think it's only right. Folks come to sit here to watch the people's business. They think that we're going to operate a transparent building here, and we work very hard to do that. We offered an amendment last night in the Rules Committee to allow a simple vote of the People's House on this provision. If you don't like parents supplementing their students' education at home, so be it. I don't understand it, but so be it. But let's have a vote on it here, just like they did in the Ways and Means Committee. On a party line basis, the amendment to allow the People's House to have a vote on this provision was defeated. And so, you might not have noticed it when the reading clerk was reading, Madam Speaker. I don't want to tell you how long that took to read. We had a lot of things packaged in this bill. You'll have to go all the way down to the 12th section of the rule, and the important words are modified by the amendment printed in Part B of the Rules Committee report. Modified by Part B of the amendment printed in the Rules Committee report. I'll translate that for you, Madam Speaker. That means with no vote of this institution whatsoever, with no consultation of or input from the Ways and Means Committee that crafted this legislation, we are going to revoke all benefits that would have gone to families who cannot find the services they need outside of the home, and thus they are paying for those services inside the home. Representative Mitchell came to the Rules Committee to testify on this amendment last night, Madam Speaker. He said his family is blessed enough to have the financial resources to take care of their special needs family member. But he talked about all the American families that he's met in his district, and you've got them in your district. The gentleman from Colorado has them in his district, and I have them in my district, who don't have the financial means, who don't have that sense of security. The Ways and Means Committee, in its wisdom, unanimously said, let's provide that security to American families. The Rules Committee, in an error in judgment, repealed it because 6 members voted yes last night. That's all it took. All it took to silence an institution of 435, Madam Speaker, was 6 members voting to include this one seemingly innocuous line that disadvantages families and children all across this nation. It's another missed opportunity, Madam Speaker. We could have been here today celebrating the things that we do together. We could have been here today celebrating shared values. We could have been here today making a difference that your constituents have asked of you and my constituents have asked of me. And from the start of this process, for the weeks in committee, for the weeks since the committee has passed it, we were doing exactly that. And in about 6 minutes of voting last night, we erased it all. It took weeks to build bipartisan consensus, Madam Speaker. It took moments to erase it all. We have choices in this institution, Madam Speaker. We made the wrong one in the Rules Committee last night. I urge my colleagues to defeat this rule. Give us a chance to make a right one. But we only get so many bites at this apple. The trust of the American people in us as an institution and us as individuals is not infinite. And if we betray that trust often enough, it'll disappear forever.